Yo, what is up guys, the boy IzuKage here with the movie for What If Naruto Went Back in Time. And a lot of people love this series, so I am really excited to bring it to you all in this full movie format. And if you do go on to enjoy the video, consider subscribing to your boy. Also, Discord link in the description. Now with that all said, let's just get right into the what if. So we start this what if off in the war arc, specifically at the death of Sasuke and Naruto. So Madara, he's looking over all of the ninjas and said to Tobirama, who has like a bunch of chakra rods in his back right now. And Madara said to him, "It was fun fighting, but I think it's about time I take care of these loose ends." Now, everyone and their Ninetales cloak, it completely disappeared since Naruto is dead, and from above them, the clouds parted, revealing a third meteor. And the IzuKage got worried because he was really exhausted at this point, but he needed to stop it. But before he could even start moving, a invisible force held him down and a chakra rod was stabbed through his back. And he coughed up blood and dropped to his knees, and he was barely hanging on. Ino ran over and started to heal him since Sakura was trying to revive Naruto. And as all of this is going on, the meteor is still coming down and is going to hit them. And Gaara, he's really far away at this point and he won't make it in time. So everyone is watching as the meteor came lower and lower. But at the last minute, Gaara used all of his sand and shot it towards the meteor, trying to slow it down. But it wasn't really effective since he was pretty far away. But Hashirama clasped his hands together and said, "Forest bloom." And trees rose from the ground and wrapped around, making it really strong to support Gaara's sand. And the meteor wasn't stopped, but it was significantly slowed down. But as they thought everything was under control, he dropped another meteor on top of that, directly on the last one, completely destroying everything in its path. And when both meteors struck, it left a massive crater and many died in the attack. And by many, I mean practically everyone except those who are obviously strong enough to survive it, like Kage and reanimations. So we switch really quickly to Naruto, and right now he's talking to Hagoromo, and after figuring out who he was, Naruto showed some respect, and then the sage said, "Naruto, right now most of your friends have died in battle." And Naruto was confused and he said, "How? There's still a lot of people out there trying to fight." But Hagoromo had a grim look on his face and said, "I wish that was the case, my boy, but I have planned for this. I will give you half my chakra and use the other half and the rest of my being to send you back into the past." And Naruto was confused and says, "How is that even possible?" And Hagoromo said, "Trust me, Naruto. The lives of your friends and your future as a whole lies in your hands." Then everything around Naruto started going dark and he screamed out many questions like, how far will he go back? And will he still have his memories? And what about Kurama? But then there was silence, and Naruto woke up in bed, breathing heavily, and he looked around seeing that he was in his room, and he was wondering if that was all a dream or something. And Naruto held his head because more parts of his dreams are starting to unravel and it's becoming a bit overwhelming. Then Naruto's doorknob started to twist and turn like someone was breaking in, and Naruto thought quickly and he reached for his kunai pouch, but he didn't have one. And then the door opened, revealing it was just Hiruzen. And Naruto, seeing him, let out a sigh of relief, and Hiruzen said, "Oh, you're already up. Just making sure you don't miss your first day of the academy." And Hiruzen walked out, closing the door behind him. And Naruto slowly sank back into bed, and then he shot up again and said, "First day of the academy?" And after hearing that, everything began to click in Naruto's head. He was transported back in time. And Naruto's mind began to race, thinking about how he's gonna change their future. But for now, Naruto, he just needs to act normal. So he puts on his signature orange and blue jacket and orange pants, and Naruto looked in the mirror and said, "I look ridiculous, but I just have to wear it for now." So he sighs and leaves, and before he goes to the academy though, he stops for a bowl of ramen at Ichiraku. And Naruto, he sits down and says, I'll take the usual. And he starts searching through his frog wallet for the 1 month free ramen that Teuchi gave him after the pain fight. But then Naruto realized he wouldn't have that because he's back in the past. So Naruto, he just eats his ramen and pays in cash, and then finally gets to the academy. And when he walks into class, he just sits at his usual spot by the window, and he starts looking over everyone in the class and just admiring where they started from and the tremendous progress they've all made. But he was brought out of his thoughts when Iruka walked in and started greeting everyone in class, and then after that taking attendance. So after doing all of that, Iruka, he gets into the lesson, and I haven't done one of these in a while. So whenever Iruka is teaching, I give you guys a quick test on your Naruto knowledge. So this question is going to be, what is the most common acronym for Kakashi with 2 Mangekyo Sharingans? For example, Kurama Chakra Mode is normally shortened to KCM. So it's Naruto KCM. So also I'm editing the video right now and I just realized I said Kurama Chakra Mode. It's QB Chakra Mode, but I mean, it's not really that big of a difference, but you guys get it. Leave your answers in the comments for what you think it is. And the first right answer, I'll ping the comment. So back with Iruka, and he's finishing up his lesson and lets everyone have lunch, and in lunch, Naruto sees Sasuke eating by himself and quickly runs down, beating Sakura to a seat next to him. And Naruto, he was like, hey, Sasuke, right? I'm Naruto Uzumaki. And the Uchiha massacre, it hasn't happened yet, so he's a bit more friendlier than usual. And he says, oh, I'm Sasuke, did you need anything? And Naruto said, well, I hoped we could be friends, maybe train together. And Sasuke's like, I mean, that doesn't sound too bad of an idea. So Naruto, in his head, he's giving himself like a pat on the back. But then Sakura just had to ruin things, and she's like, excuse me, I was going to sit next to Sasuke. And Naruto just internally rolled his eyes so hard because all the memories of Sakura he had, they're just coming back to him, and he's just realizing just how annoying she's always been, and his love for her really clouded that. So he's just seeing this and he just can't stand it. He just gets up without saying a word and walks off. And Sakura, she smirks, acting like she really did something, like she won something, and she sat next to Sasuke to annoy him next. So Naruto decided to go around and form stronger friendships with some of the students in his class, like Shikamaru, Choji, Hinata. But they didn't really have much time because not long after, Iruka returned to class and he started teaching again. So he tells the students that he wants them to take a quick strength evaluation test. It's just a short physical test where he's gonna test each student's physical fitness. So Iruka has the students line up and they go outside, and at the start of the first course, which is gonna be a simple jog around the back of the school, and it's the last person to stop running who wins. So then Iruka, he starts, and as expected, after around the 5th lap, students start getting tired and many stop, but Naruto and Sasuke surprisingly kept it going for even longer. The two kept going and looking at each other like it was a real competition. But after the 18th lap, Sasuke, he collapsed, making Naruto the winner. And Naruto walked up to Sasuke, and Sasuke's thinking Naruto is about to gloat in his face, saying he's better than him or something. But Naruto, he just said, you did insanely well. I was about to collapse right with you. And Sasuke, he was kind of surprised by this because no one was ever really had any friendly competition around him. So Naruto, he extended his hand to help Sasuke up, and he grabbed it and they got up together. So next up was a taijutsu sparring session, and everyone had to partner up and they would go against each other. And first up was actually Naruto versus Sasuke. And Sakura and Ino were the loudest, cheering for their Sasuke-kun, so the students made some space for them, and Iruka said, now let's have a fair and clean fight, let's begin. And Naruto had a solid stance with one hand forward and another closer to his chest. And then Sasuke, he just ran at Naruto without much technique, just trying to hit him. But Naruto, he grabs his hand and turned around and used his leg and kicked Sasuke's and flipped him onto the ground. But he tried to make the impact not too hard, and Sakura was devastated and called out Naruto for cheating because there's no way her Sasuke-kun could have lost. But Sasuke said, "Sakura, can you please just shut up for once?" And she was shocked, and Naruto helped Sasuke up and said, "Next time, try tracking your opponent and don't fight so wildly." And Sasuke was actually taking Naruto's advice, but Iruka, he was the most impressed by Naruto because that was not an easy move. Being able to shift your weight that cleanly, that requires years of practice. So after everyone went, the school let out for the day, and when Naruto got home, he started experimenting with his chakra, trying to figure out what he can and can't do, and soon he realized that he can't perform any of the jutsus he once knew, and he'd have to relearn all of them, which isn't too bad because Naruto, he already knows all the steps, so he can train and learn way faster. But then Naruto's mind immediately went to Kurama. So he went to meditate to attempt to enter his mindscape, and he did. And Naruto appeared in this wide open room with water all over the floor. And Naruto turned around and saw this massive cage, and he yelled out Kurama's name. And then not long after, a deep voice said, "How do you know my name?" And hearing this, Naruto already knew that Kurama did not remember him, but he said, "Hagoromo, he sent me back in time. In the future, the world as we know it is in danger." And Kurama kept silent because Naruto mentioned Hagoromo, but he said, "What proof do you have?" And Naruto began thinking, trying to find something, anything he could show for it, but then he remembered what Hagoromo said. "I will give you half my chakra and use the other half to send you back in time." So all he needed to do was bring out the half of Hagoromo's chakra. So Naruto did hand signs and chakra started swirling around his body and collected into dark spheres floating behind Naruto's back, his truth-seeking orbs. And seeing this, Kurama steps out of the darkness and looked at Naruto, and he said, "How do you know that technique?" And Naruto said, "Like I said before, I received chakra from Hagoromo himself." And Kurama couldn't believe it, and he kept silent. While throughout the night, Naruto, he explains his life to Kurama and what will happen in the years to come. And to say Kurama was surprised would be an understatement. He was baffled by all of this, but trusted Naruto since he could sense he wasn't lying. And the amount of detail Naruto went in, it literally couldn't be a lie. Because Naruto, he would have to be the best liar on earth to come up with that story. So after everything was said and done, Naruto said to Kurama, "I'll find Jiraiya to release the seal, but until then, I'll figure out how to use the 5-prong seal to loosen it." And Kurama just said, "Okay, kid." And Naruto faded out of his mindscape. So we start this 5-year time skip, and during which Naruto, he would train his socks off, mainly in chakra control because that's what he was like the worst at. And also learning different wind jutsus like Gale Palm and Rising Wind. And Naruto, he would also work on his physical strength, and we can't forget Shadow Clones, of course. So this is Naruto's last day at the academy, and he's made strong relationships with almost everyone in his class except Sakura, because Naruto just couldn't stand her. And for Sasuke, he did get more reserved after the Uchiha massacre, but Naruto, he kept being good friends with him, and even they would train together sometimes. So he gets to class and sits next to Sasuke, and he said, "Oh, Naruto, you're here pretty early." And Naruto says, "Well, it is our last day," and Sasuke, he just nodded in agreement. So the two wait for more and more people to arrive, and finally Iruka gets to class. So he starts talking about how the graduation exams will go. Students will have to do a written test and then perform a clone and transformation jutsu. So he goes around and starts handing out the test papers, and Mizuki is actually there helping him hand these out. So when Mizuki gets to Naruto, he hands him a paper, but Naruto, he senses that there's a genjutsu over it and he does release. And Naruto realizes that the questions are way easier than what Mizuki just gave him. So Mizuki is trying to sabotage Naruto because he isn't trying to let that demon become a ninja. So Naruto, he looks over the paper and he's like, this isn't even not that hard. And Naruto, he finishes it pretty quickly, and half an hour later, Iruka has everyone pass the papers up to the front where he would collect them. Now time for the clone jutsu test, and Iruka calls the students up alphabetically, so first up would be Hinata, I'm pretty sure, if I know my alphabets. So she did the clone jutsu perfectly, and then the transformation, she transformed into Iruka. So that was all fine and good. And after everyone would go, next would be Ino, yada yada yada, and then it came to Naruto's turn. And Naruto walked up to the front of the class really confident, and Iruka told Naruto he can go whenever he's ready. So Naruto, he made some hand signs, but they were different from what everyone has been using thus far. And he said, multi-shadow clone jutsu. And smoke from the jutsu filled the entire room. But when it cleared, there were Narutos all over the class. And when someone touched one of them, they realized that these were solid clones. But how? And Iruka is staring all over the class, just mind blown, seeing about 100 Narutos. And Naruto smirked, then despawned 95 of them, leaving 5 plus himself. And then he transformed into the 1st to 4th Hokage, and one was Jiraiya and the other was Tsunade. Ino was the first to realize and said, "Are those the legendary Sannin?" And Tsunade, she said to Ino, "Betcha." And finally, Naruto released all the jutsu, and at this point, Iruka, he was overwhelmed, bro. He just put the infinity sign for Naruto's grade, and he walked back to his seat proud. So Sasuke said, "We haven't trained together in a few weeks, and you're already this far ahead?" And Naruto just laughed. So with his almost perfect exam grade, Naruto was announced Rookie of the Year, and you could imagine when the news spread all across the village, the villagers were mad about it but all they could do is try to get Hiruzen to make Sasuke the true Rookie of the Year. So they had members of the civilian councils call for a meeting. So Hiruzen is in his office, doing his usual mountains upon mountains of paperwork. And then an Anbu member appears and said, "Lord Hokage, you're being summoned to the council." And Hiruzen is wondering why anyone would call a meeting at this time. So Hiruzen, he goes to the meeting room where all the clan heads, Danzo, and the elders, and 3 prominent civilian members are sitting waiting for his arrival. And Hiruzen sat down and said, "What is the purpose of this meeting?" And Hiyashi Hyuga pointed to the 3 civilians, and Hiruzen said, "What is it?" And one of them stood up and said, "Lord Third, it has come to our attention that Naruto Uzumaki has become the Rookie of the Year." And Hiruzen, hearing this, was actually kind of surprised to see Naruto progress that much. And he said, "Okay, what's the problem?" And another civilian stood up, and she was Sakura's mom, and said, "The problem is that we can't have the demon going around thinking that he's better than everyone." And Hiruzen had an angry look on his face, and he snapped his finger, and an Anbu appeared behind the 3, and Hiruzen said in a menacing tone, "Need I remind you that this is a S-rank secret? If you say it out loud, what will happen again?" The civilians started sweating bullets, and they said, "We're sorry, Lord Hokage." And then Danzo chimed in and said, "This isn't the first time they're doing something like this, Hiruzen. I say remove them from the council. They're no use. After all, this is a ninja village." And Hiruzen thought about it for a moment and got up and said, "If this happens again, you 3 are off the council. Got it?" And they took a gulp, then nodded. So Hiruzen went back to his office, and as he sat back in his chair, he said, "If what they're saying is true, then Naruto must have really gotten stronger and more mature. I'm definitely gonna go check up on him." So Hiruzen got up and started walking towards Naruto's house, and as he's getting closer, he could sense an ominous chakra, and he started having flashbacks of the Nine-Tails attack. He thought, no, did the beast take over? And he started sprinting towards Naruto's apartment, and when he got to the door, he could sense it even stronger. And Hiruzen bust through the door and bit his thumb because he was ready to summon Monkey King Enma, and then he saw Naruto meditating with the Nine-Tails cloak surrounding him, and it had 6 tails. Hiruzen was stunned, but he just stood there and kept watch over the beast, and he called from Yamato, but he won't be here for a while. So meanwhile, Naruto is in his mindscape talking to the QB, and he said, "It seems I can handle up to 6 tails. Let's try 7. And Naruto lifted his shirt, and seals started appearing on each of his fingers, and he said, "5-pronged seal, loosen." And he jabbed himself in the stomach, and he winced in pain. And then on the outside, Naruto slowly started forming the 7th tail. And Hiruzen, he's starting to get worried and said to himself, "Where the hell is Yamato?" But as he did, Yamato came in through the door, and when he saw Naruto, he immediately started doing hand signs, and he held his hand towards Naruto, but Hiruzen stopped him and said, "He seems to be under control. Maybe Naruto could tame the beast." And Yamato was wondering if Hiruzen had gone mad. But then the chakra around Naruto began getting weaker, and slowly he returned to his normal self, with no hint of the Kyuubi's chakra. And Naruto's eyes then opened, and he sees Hiruzen, and he says, "Oh, what's up?" And as Naruto got up off the ground, Hiruzen said, "Are you okay?" And Naruto is just like, "Yeah, why?" And Naruto sees Yamato, and he said, "Yamato sensei, it's been a while." And Yamato is like, "I don't know you, kid." And Naruto realized he just messed up. And Hiruzen said, "Naruto, I need answers. How did you control the Nine-Tails, and how do you know Yamato?" And Naruto was backed into a corner, and he had no choice but to reveal his secrets. So we pick right back up with Naruto being cornered by Yamato and Hiruzen, who want to know the truth. And Naruto, he just says, "Okay." And he pauses for a bit, and for a moment he's thinking if it's really worth it to tell them, but then Naruto remembers that Hiruzen is going to die in like a month from now, so it's probably best if he does. So Naruto looks up to them and says, "I'm from the future." Hiruzen and Yamato are looking at each other, and Hiruzen says, "Yeah, and I can use wood style. Naruto, be serious." And Naruto sighs, and Kurama speaks to him and says, and Naruto, he stops to think about it, then he says to them, "Alright, I can prove it. My dad is Minato Namikaze and my mother is Kushina Uzumaki." And Hiruzen, he was shocked that Naruto knew this, but he's like, "Okay, you could have just read that somewhere in a book or something." But Naruto started going into detail about different events that have happened, like the Uchiha massacre, the curse of hatred, and the day of the Nine-Tails attack, and even everything that's been going on with Itachi and how he was tasked with slaughtering his entire clan. Now Hiruzen is starting to believe Naruto because he's saying some SS plus rank secrets, like the most secretive secrets in the entire village. And Hiruzen is like, okay, just stay quiet before someone who's passing by hears. And Hiruzen asks Naruto, "Then if you're from the future, why did you come back?" And Naruto responded, "I came back to save the entire shinobi world." And Hiruzen is thinking like the entire world got wiped out, gods came down and killed everyone. And he isn't totally wrong, but Naruto, he wouldn't know that since he left before Kaguya appeared. But anyways, Naruto says getting in the specifics isn't really important right now because in about a month, Orochimaru is going to kill you. And Hiruzen hearing this is like, "Orochimaru? Damn it." And Hiruzen is regretting every chance he got to take care of him. And Naruto just said, "I'll tell you more, but you guys kinda broke down my door." And Hiruzen is like, "Oh yeah, no worries. Yamato, he has it." And Yamato, he's in his own world right now, thinking about all the possibilities the future had to hold. And eventually Hiruzen, he brings him out of his like his own mind, and makes him make a new door for Naruto. So we fast forward to the next day and Naruto returns to the academy. And as soon as he walks out of his apartment, he goes downstairs and Naruto sees a group of 4 villagers gathering around the staircase. And if that wasn't weird enough, when he walked past them, they just stopped talking completely and just stared at him. And he felt really weirded out by this, but he put some pep in his step and just got going to the academy. And when he got near, he sees Hinata by the door. So Naruto, he runs up and calls out her name. And Hinata, like, she's embarrassed by this. She freezes and immediately goes red. And when Naruto catches up, he says, "Yo, what's up? We haven't talked in a while since, the other day. How have you been?" And Hinata said, I'm good, Naruto." So they start walking together to class, having a little conversation, and when they get there, Kiba is in his seat watching them, and he's had a crush on Hinata for the longest time. And he just puts his head down on the desk and said, "You win this one, Naruto." So Naruto goes to his seat, and Sasuke asks Naruto, "You think we'll be on the same team?" And Naruto says, "I know we'll be on the same team." But Sasuke, he just thinks Naruto is just having wishful thinking. So Iruka, he arrives soon after and he gets straight to the point and says, "I have all the teams listed right here," and he starts going through them. So first up, Team 10, Jake Paul, Nick wrong Team 10. Team 10, Naruto, anime. Okay, I got the right Team 10, just a bit of a mix-up. So it's Choji Akamichi, Ino Yamanaka, and Shikamaru Nara, and their squad leader is going to be Asuma Sarutobi. So next up is Team 8, Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, and Shino Aburame, and their squad leader is going to be Kurenai Yuhi, and that leaves Team 7. And this Team 7 is going to stay completely the same: Sasuke Uchiha, Naruto Uzumaki, and Sakura Haruno. And of course, their squad leader is going to be Kakashi Sensei, Kakashi Hatake, but we know him as Kakashi Sensei. So Sakura screamed out in joy because she's on a team with Sasuke, and she makes sure to rub it all up in Ino's face. So right after that, Asuma and Kurenai, they come in and take their team out just for a little introduction. Asuma takes them to a barbecue place while Kurenai just takes them somewhere random. So while Team 7, they're just waiting for their Jonin sensei, and Naruto says to Sasuke and Sakura, "Get comfortable because he's not coming for a while." So they wait for over an hour until Kakashi finally arrives. And when he did, he was going to come up with an excuse. And Naruto, he just walked to the door and said, "Save it, Kakashi sensei. Just meet us up at the roof." And Kakashi's like, "That's my line." So the team meets up at the roof of the academy, and they start their little introductions. So first off was Sakura, and she said, "Well, my name is Sakura Haruno, and I like a certain someone," looking in Sasuke's direction, and dislikes another certain someone, making sure to stare right in Naruto's eyes. And Naruto, he wasn't gonna take this. He focused his Kyuubi's killing intent towards Sakura, and she felt this chill crawl up her back like she was about to die. So she stayed silent for a while until Kakashi, started snapping his fingers in her face, trying to get her attention. And that's when she finally just snapped out of it and said, my goals are to one day become a strong kunoichi." So next was Sasuke, and his was actually a lot different from in canon. His likes were training and getting stronger, and dislikes was he disliked a certain someone. And his goal was to just find out the truth about his clan. So Kakashi, he was actually surprised by this answer because he would have thought that Sasuke would be completely angry at Itachi for doing it, but he's actually surprised at how mature Sasuke is being. So after that's all said and done, Naruto is finally up next, and nothing changes about him. He still wants to be the Hokage, his likes are still ramen, literally nothing changes. So after that, Kakashi says, "Okay, cool. I want you guys to meet me at the main training grounds tomorrow, and that's when you will have your real test." And Sakura said, "Oh, what do you mean by a real test?" But Kakashi just poofed into clouds. And Naruto laughed a bit and gets up and says, "See ya tomorrow" to Sasuke. And he waves back to Naruto. So Naruto, he starts jumping from rooftop to rooftop to get home, and when he does, he sees his front door completely ripped off the hinges and it's like broken into pieces. And Naruto, he's like, what the heck? And he goes inside his room and it's completely trashed. His clothes are thrown all over the place, plates are smashed on the ground, and his mattress is halfway outside his window? What? So Naruto was just thinking, who could have done this? And that's when he remembered those guys from earlier. So Naruto was pissed, but he just wanted to move out. He wanted to move out anyways. So this may have just been a blessing in disguise. So Naruto started packing all of his more important things like clothes, ninja tools, and how could he forget the ramen, because they smashed some of his ramens. Like, he could have tell that somebody stepped on the cups, but you know, they spared some of them, so Naruto made sure to carry those with him. So he headed to the Hokage's office, and Naruto, like, he enters Hiruzen's office, and Hiruzen is surprised to see Naruto because he rarely visits, and says, "To what do I owe the pleasure?" And Naruto, he starts to explain how someone completely trashed his apartment. And at first, Hiruzen, he wanted to know because he was ready to call up Ibiki anytime to lock them up. But Naruto, he just says it's fine, and he was planning to move out anyways. And Hiruzen, hearing this, he was actually surprised because he had planned to give Naruto his own house. And Naruto, he was like, "Oh, okay." So Hiruzen, he takes Naruto to this house, and it's actually one of the houses in the Uchiha compound, because the Uchiha compound, it's literally just abandoned. Like, Sasuke is the only one who stays over there. So why just waste it when Naruto could have a decent home over there? So Hiruzen takes Naruto to a house that is way bigger than his apartment. He has a full kitchen, a living room, 2 bedrooms. Bro, he's living the life, and at the low cost of $0. So Naruto, he was excited because he had never owned his own house or even have this much space to do anything. So Hiruzen, he sees how excited Naruto is, and he just wants to, you know, let him be. So he sees his way out. So Naruto, he spends the night, packing his stuff, getting tucked in like it's his own home. So the next morning, Naruto wakes up in his bed and gets prepared for his meeting with his team. So he puts on his ninja gear, his headband, everything, and heads to the training ground. So Naruto gets there and sees his teammates under a tree trying to get some shade because Kakashi doesn't look like he's coming anytime soon, so they're making themselves comfortable. So Naruto, he goes up, he greets them, and Sasuke asks him, "Do you have any idea what the test is gonna be?" And Naruto, he smiles and says, "Yeah, I have an idea. Since we're a team, it's probably best if we come up with an idea to work together." And Naruto called to Sakura, so they all came together to come up with something. So soon enough, Kakashi, he arrives, and it's actually not as late as their first meeting, but still Kakashi needs to learn to be punctual. So Kakashi, he starts explaining this test he's been talking about, and he calls it the bell test. On his waistband, he has 2 bells, and whoever is the first 2 to grab it will move on, while the person who doesn't get a bell gets sent back to the academy. So Naruto, he already knows the deal with this, but Sasuke, he's thinking this is weird because he has never seen a 3-man team, like a full team with just 3 persons. It's normally 3 genin and 1 jonin sensei. So he's kind of confused at that, but it doesn't really click to him that you need to use teamwork. So Kakashi, he takes them out into the middle of the field and then says, "Begin." And at that, all 3 of them rush into the forest. And Kakashi was actually surprised at how easily they hid, because right now he can't sense any of them. So they're probably gonna be there for a while, he thinks. So he takes out his Make Out Paradise, because we all know that's the best book in the village, hands down. But while Kakashi is reading, Naruto is starting his plan to make sure that he can finish this before he reveals his Sharingan, or else this would make it a lot harder. So he turns to his teammates and said, just follow the plan and it'll work out fine. And he says, Sakura, ready? And she nods. So we switch back to Kakashi and he can sense someone moving out, and he sees Sakura running out of the bushes and she's just standing there. Then Sakura started doing hand signs, and Kakashi, he's looking at the seals and he realizes it's a fireball, and he jumps back, and he's thinking Sakura has a fire element, and she completes the jutsu and she shoots out a massive fireball way larger than some jonins in the village, and it hits Kakashi, but he turns into a log, and he came from behind Sakura and ran at her. Seeing that she poses this much of a threat, Kakashi is trying to get her out of this, right? Trying to knock her out immediately. So Kakashi, he runs up from behind Sakura and throws a punch, but she realizes this and turns around and catches it and starts holding Kakashi's hand, and he tries using his other hand, but she grabs it also, and she was just holding him down until Sasuke jumped down from the tree above them and managed to grab one of the bells. And Kakashi headbutted Sakura and she poofed into a cloud of smoke, revealing that it was Naruto all along. And Kakashi was thinking that, oh, so it was a transformation. But Kakashi sees Naruto smile before poofing into a cloud of smoke, and it was a shadow clone. And Kakashi started looking around, and that's when Sakura came out of the nearby bushes and rushed at him, and she threw a kunai at Kakashi, which he easily dodges, but the kunai poofed, revealing that it was Naruto, and he opens his palm and screamed, Rasengan! And a blue spiraling ball of chakra slammed into Kakashi's back and sent him flying into a tree, knocking him out. So just some quick exposition. You guys remember when I said that if Naruto wanted to learn any jutsu he already knew, it would be way more efficient since he knows what to do? This time, learning the Rasengan only took 2 days. That's how efficient it is. Plus, he was using a shadow clone, like using the shadow clone memory thing, so that's how he could have used it one-handed way quicker. So, let's get back into it. 20 minutes later, and Kakashi, he wakes up and he's tied up to the stump while Team 7 is enjoying their large bowls of ramen, and Naruto says to Kakashi, rise and shine. And Naruto, he jingles both the bells in Kakashi's face and says, teamwork was the aim of the game, right? And Kakashi, he chuckled a bit and said, so you knew from the start. You're smarter than you let on. And Naruto just lets out a big smile and continues stuffing his face with ramen. So with the team now officially becoming Team 7, they start doing D-rank missions. And these include like catching cats, helping old ladies cross the road, picking up litter, just the little tasks that need to be done but there's not always people to do them. So after about 2 weeks of doing this, the team, they are annoyed, but it was more of a learning experience for them because Naruto was actually the one who tried to make the missions fun, tried to make it a bonding experience with his team, because he knows that Naruto, he needs to make a strong bond for this team because he does not want Sasuke to leave the village. So even though the team is having fun, Naruto knows this is around the time when they would ask for the C rank mission. So whenever they go to get their next D rank, Naruto, he brings it up to his team, and they actually agree because they've been kind of finding these missions sort of repetitive. So Hiruzen, after hearing everyone's thoughts, he actually doesn't mind giving them a higher rank mission since, well, he knows about Naruto and the fact that Kakashi is on their team. So they probably face no one stronger than Kakashi in whatever mission he gives them. So Hiruzen starts sifting through some of the missions he has, and he finds a perfect one, a C rank escort mission, and he starts to explain the details to the mission to them, saying they have to escort a bridge builder called Tazuna to the land of waves. So he asks an Anbu to bring Tazuna in, and for once in his life, he isn't a drunken mess, and he comes in pretty sober, and he looks over the team, and he does say You know, he had expected them to be like a lot older and more experienced, but he knows that he's completely lying, so he shouldn't expect anything and should just be happy that the village was fooled by his like C rank mission request. So Tazuna, he's happy with the team, so he heads out and they all meet up at the village gates the next day. And after getting some introductions out of the way and starting to get to know Tazuna, the team, they start heading out to the land of waves. And not even 15 minutes from the village, Naruto, Kakashi, and Sasuke all realize something suspicious. There is a puddle up ahead, but it hasn't rained for weeks. They're in the middle of the dry season. So Sasuke, he looks back at Naruto and Naruto nods at him. So Sasuke, he jumps out in front of the group and he does hand signs and says, "Fire style, majestic destroyer flame." And he fires a continuous stream of flame. Imagine Madara against the Shinobi Alliance, but a lot weaker. Still, the brothers are not surviving this. So when the flame subsides, they see the charred remains of the demon brothers. And Naruto comes up to Sasuke and gives him a pat on the back. While Kakashi, he's just awestruck at these two. They cease to amaze him because of these jutsus they're using. First off, Naruto with the Rasengan, he doesn't even know how Naruto learned that. There is no one in the entire village except Kakashi himself who knows the Rasengan, so he doesn't know who could have even taught him. And Sasuke, well, he has the Uchiha library with all the jutsus, but that takes a considerable amount of chakra, and for him to be able to use that is really impressive, being a genin. So after Kakashi sealed the bodies away, they continue on their path to the land of waves. And they're approaching this heavy fog on their path, and Tazuna is getting chills up his spine as they approach this fog. And Naruto yelled out "duck," and the entire team crouches down under an executioner's blade, like barely avoiding them, and it lodges itself into a tree. And someone lands on it, and Naruto says under his breath, "Zabuza." And Kakashi hears this and he's thinking how the heck Naruto even knows about Zabuza, but that's the least of their worries because Zabuza is ready to kill them. But Naruto, he knows the good in him and he'll try to win them over to their side. So we pick right back up with Team 7 being confronted by the demon of the mist, Zabuza, and he said, "Kakashi the copy ninja, and who are these brats you have with you?" And Kakashi said, "It's none of your business," and he throws kunais at him, and Zabuza easily dodges this and he rips his sword out of the tree and jumps down onto the lake. And before he gets into battle, Kakashi tells his team to stay put while he deals with this. So Naruto, he wasn't going to interfere in this since he already knows the outcome of the fight, or at least he's gonna stay out of it for now. So this fight goes almost 1-to-1 with canon. Kakashi ends up having to reveal his Sharingan, which Sasuke is curious about since he knows that only Uchiha have Sharingan. And he knows for sure that Kakashi is not an Uchiha, but he decides to keep this to himself for now because of the fight raging on. So Kakashi is copying perfectly everything Zabuza throws at him, but he ends up getting caught in a water prison. And that's when Sasuke had a plan to use the demon wind shuriken he brought with him. So he explained the plan to Naruto, and when they were ready, Sasuke threw the demon wind shuriken towards Zabuza and he surprisingly jumped over it. So Sasuke, he was acting all shocked, but this was all a part of their plan. So the shuriken poofed and Naruto appeared and threw another kunai at Zabuza, who had to rip his hand out of the water prison to release the jutsu. So Naruto, he jumped towards Kakashi and brought him back to Tazuna, and Zabuza, he made 5 water clones ready to attack because he was like, these damn kids think they're so smart. But Sasuke, he was ready to rush over to Zabuza to deal some damage, but Naruto held his hand out in front of him and said, "I sense another ninja in the woods watching, so I need you to stay put, and when they appear, catch them off guard." So Sasuke, he nodded, and then Naruto looked towards Zabuza, and then he did a hand sign and started charging his chakra. And blue chakra started swirling around Naruto, but then it turned red. And Naruto's features started to resemble more of a fox. His whiskers became thicker, his nails grew longer, and his hair was getting a lot spikier. So Tazuna and Sakura, they were scared of Zabuza's killing intent, but the Nine-Tails chakra just froze them in place. And Zabuza laughed and said, like, that's gonna do anything good. But as he said that, Naruto disappeared from his vision and reappeared and kicked him across the water into a tree. And this sent him through one of the trees and slammed into the one behind it. That's how strong that kick was. So the clones tried to rush Naruto, but he roars and the shockwave from this dispels the clones. And Naruto, he looks over to the forest and sees Haku, but she's ready to jump out, but she hasn't made any moves yet. So Naruto, he's saying to himself, so it seems he really needs to put Zabuza in danger, like it put his life in danger. So Naruto, he's like, that's easy enough. So what was just his Nine-Tails cloak without any tails started forming tails going up to 2 tails. And Naruto opened his hand and formed a Rasengan, but that wasn't it. He had a clone start infusing wind chakra into it, forming the Rasenshuriken. And Kakashi, he's looking at Naruto and his eyes are wide open. And he's like, is that a complete Rasengan? But not even the 4th Hokage could do that. And Sasuke and Sakura heard this, and this just shows how powerful Naruto was. And he got ready to throw the jutsu, but Haku jumped out and ran at Naruto. But his path was blocked by a massive wall of fire from Sasuke. So Naruto's clone from earlier went to pick up the unconscious Zabuza, and Naruto himself dispelled the Rasenshuriken. So Haku, she wasn't able to see what was going on, so her only choice really was to either risk just running straight through it or running towards Sasuke. But before she could choose, a foot came out of the wall of fire in front of him and he got kicked in the face, breaking his mask, and Haku got sent flying back. But before he could get up, Naruto held a kunai towards his neck and said, "Surrender and you won't get hurt." And Haku stares at Naruto and said, "I'll stop at nothing to finish my mission." And Haku kicked Naruto off and used this time to throw a lethal poison senbon at Tazuna. But Naruto couldn't stop him in time, and the senbon flew towards Tazuna, and Sasuke reached out trying to grab it, but he was too slow. Until it was like time slowed down for him, and he had a split second to push the senbon out of the way before it hit Tazuna. Naruto looked at Haku and said, "You're lucky," and he neck chopped him, and Haku passed out. So Naruto's clone came out with Zabuza's body slumped over his shoulder, and they brought it to Kakashi, who put a chakra restricting seal on both Zabuza and Haku, and a binding seal so they won't be able to move. So Naruto, he looks at Sasuke and then he realizes and says, "You activated your Sharingan." And Sasuke, he was shocked as well, and he looked in the reflection of a kunai, and Sasuke, his red eyes was just filled by a single tomoe. And Sasuke, he was excited. He's been waiting for this moment for a long time, and he's finally awakened it. And from the forest, a voice spoke. "You think we should tell Pain? Of course, you numbskull. That kid is something else. We should watch out for him." So we are back with Team 7, and they're continuing on their journey to the land of waves. So they get to a dock where a fisherman there recognizes Tazuna, and he offers him as well as Team 7 a ride over to the town. And of course they accept. So while boating over, the thick fog finally dissipates, revealing the poor and broken down buildings of the land of waves. And Naruto turned to Kakashi and said, "We can't kill Zabuza and Haku." And Kakashi raised an eyebrow and said, "Haku, how do you know his name?" And Naruto, he tries to think of something quick and he says, Zabuza, he shouted, "Haku, help!" Didn't you hear? And Kakashi, he starts thinking back and he can't remember anything like that. But Naruto, he quickly changes the subject and says, that's not the point. The point is, if we can show these two how life is back in the village, maybe they would want to become a leaf ninja. I'm sure Hiruzen would accept, and Kakashi, he was hesitant, and he said, the idea, it is pretty far-fetched, but I mean, it is all up to the Hokage, what he decides to do. So as Kakashi says this, the boat driver, captain, helmsman, the fisherman giving them a ride, he says, we're here. So they climb out of the boat, and before he rows off, he says to Tazuna, Gato really has done a number on the town. Building this bridge will change literally everything. People can finally have food to eat, clothes to put on their backs, and roofs over their heads. So we need you. And they both nod at each other, and Tazuna started to show Team 7 towards his house. And as they're walking, this malnourished kid bumps into Sakura, and he starts apologizing, and Sakura, she's like, oh, it's okay, and rubs his hair, and the kid runs off. Meanwhile, Naruto, he's over there laughing, and a vein appears on Sakura's forehead, and like she puts up her fist and says, what are you laughing about, Naruto? And he says, oh, nothing. You'll figure it out later. So they get to Tazuna's house, and as they open the door, their noses are greeted to an amazing smell of her cooking, Tazuna's daughter. She comes to the door and hugs her father and thanks Team 7 for bringing him home safe. And they said, it's no problem, they were just doing their job. So she treated the team to a home-cooked meal, and trust me, they were not gonna refuse. Just imagine them eating your favorite meal. And speaking of, comment down below what your favorite meal is in the comments. Mine's shrimp or chicken alfredo. I could go either way, but they are amazing, and you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't try it. So after licking the sauces off their plates, Naruto and the others were full, and Tazuna shows their guests to a spare room that they have. And as Sakura is in her room, taking off her ninja pouch and just some gear she brought with her, she's trying to look for her wallet, and it's gone. And she starts thinking where she could have lost it, and then she remembers Naruto laughing when the kid bumped into her, and she balled up her fist and said, that damn Naruto! And Naruto, he's outside in a tree and he sneezes, and after that decides to head back inside, thinking that he might catch a cold or something. So when the next day rolls around, they actually get to train from Kakashi, because he didn't exert himself as much as in canon, so he's still able to walk. He isn't in any crutches or sleeping for the entire day. So the team learns water walking and tree walking in the course of 3 days, and by the team I just mean Sakura and Sasuke, because Naruto, he already knew. So take Sakura's role when they were learning it as the person who already knew it. She was basically did it by within hours. Naruto would replace her because he had an even greater amount of chakra control than her, because Naruto, he has been training for years at this point. So the night before the bridge is slated to be completed, Sasuke catches Naruto out really late at night, and he sees him practicing some kind of jutsu. He sees Naruto writing some seals on his kunai and throwing it, but nothing happens. And Sasuke, he's kind of confused, because every time Naruto, he would keep changing something, write down something on the kunai, add something, remove something, and just watch Naruto get frustrated every time when nothing happens. And he was about to leave because he just thinks Naruto, he's going crazy or something. But he sees Naruto just lay back on the grass and says, I wish you were here. But Sasuke doesn't know who he's referring to anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So the next day rolls around, and Team 7 is patrolling the bridge, and that's when they see this boat filled with mercenaries with swords, spears, every single weapon you could think of. And Gato, as well as all of them, climbed onto the bridge. And Gato, he walks out in front of all of them and says, "So, I see those two couldn't do their jobs. Oh well, I wasn't gonna pay them anyways." And he snaps his fingers and the entire mob gets ready and he orders them to take care of everyone here. So this horde of these around like over 100 mercenaries storm the bridge, and Naruto looks over to Sasuke and said, "Let's use that jutsu we've been working on." And Sasuke, he nods and they both clasp their hands together and said, "Combination jutsu, fire vortex." And Sasuke does a fire style great flame and Naruto does wind style rising wind, and they both came together to create this massive tornado of fire. And when it slowly closed in, everyone would get scorched and cut marks all over their body. And when it dissipated, the mercenaries started dropping like flies. Their bodies were completely charred. And Naruto and Sasuke, they fist bump, and after clearing up all the bodies, the construction of the bridge continued and it was completed by nightfall. So after another night of a home-cooked meal, Team 7 was ready to head back to the village with Zabuza and Haku, who they had been spoon feeding this entire time, and you could imagine they did not like that. So after saying their goodbyes, Team 7 heads back to the Leaf Village. Editor IzuKage here, and I just realized I forgot Inari, so there's that, but he's not too important, so it doesn't really matter. Let's continue. So Team 7 arrive back at the Leaf Village within a day, and when they do, Kakashi immediately takes Haku and Zabuza to Ibiki to hold them in like a cell until Hiruzen gives any orders. So that's their next stop. The team walks into Hiruzen's office and they see Hiruzen like slumped over on his desk, and at first they thought the worst. They rushed over and started shaking him to check if he was okay. But Hiruzen got up and said, you guys, I was just resting my eyes. How was the mission? And Kakashi, he began to speak and said, "We encountered the S-rank shinobi Zabuza Momochi and one of his pupils, but luckily we captured them and they're now in Ibiki's care. But the mission was definitely not C-rank." And Hiruzen thought about it for a second and he was like, "Yeah, you're right." So he upgrades the mission and their pay to that of a B-rank mission. So Team 7 left the room, but Naruto, he stayed back to say something really quickly. He said, "Oh, by the way, Hiruzen, try using a shadow clone so you can get some rest. Don't overwork yourself." And with that, he leaves. So Team 7 had 2 days to rest, and during this, they really did nothing. They just chilled and hanged out. But once those were over, Kakashi sent out his Ninken to give each of his students an important message. So on the morning of their 3rd day back from the Land of Waves, Team 7 meets up at the same training ground that they did for the bell test, and Sasuke, he asks Naruto like, "You have any idea what this is about?" And Naruto, he just shrugs and says, "I don't know, I guess we just wait for him to come." And not long after, Kakashi arrives and greets his team, and he says, "So you all are wondering why I brought you all out here. Well, the Chunin exams are coming up and I need 2 out of the 3 of you to agree to it." And Sasuke, he just stared blankly at Kakashi. Like, of course we want to go. Is that even a question? And both Naruto and Sakura said yes, and Kakashi, he just rubbed the back of his head and said, "I was just making sure you guys did, but no, I see you are ready for it. So you have 2 weeks to train before the first stage of the exams." So they all agree and Kakashi body flickers away, and Sasuke is like, "I need to ask him to teach me that." But anyways, Sasuke goes over to Naruto and says, "So what are you gonna be doing over these 2 weeks?" And Naruto, he says, "I have a few jutsu I want to learn. How about you?" And Sasuke says, "Are you kidding me? I have an entire library to go through." And he and Naruto had a good laugh. Then Sasuke says, "Actually, you should ask Kakashi to teach you the Chidori." And Sasuke raised an eyebrow and said, "What is that?" And Naruto said, just don't worry about it, just go up and ask him, I'm pretty sure he's gonna teach you. So Sasuke, he agrees and the two go about their separate ways. So for the jutsus Naruto will be learning, I kind of want to keep it a bit of a secret. I'm of course going to drop some hints, which I already have done. So hopefully you guys been picking up on those. So on one of his days of training, within the 2 weeks, Naruto, he's training in his backyard and he falls over like he's been struck by lightning, and Naruto's hair is all spiky and he has some burns on his clothes. And he gets up to go inside to get something to eat, but he hears a knock at the door and Naruto goes to answer it, and it's actually Hinata. And Naruto is shocked to see her here, and he asks, oh, hey Hinata, what do you come all the way out here for? Because remember, Naruto, he lives in the Uchiha compound, which is outside of the Leaf Village itself. So Hinata, she holds down her head and hands Naruto a basket, and he raises an eyebrow and takes it, and she says, Sakura told me you were working hard, so I brought something to keep your energy up. And Naruto looks in the basket and he sees some fresh fruit, some food pills, and best of all, some ramen packages. And Naruto's eyes widen and he says, Hinata, you know me too well. And he drags her into a hug, and when he lets go, Hinata starts slowly backing up and her entire body glows red and she runs off. And Naruto scratches his cheek and thinks, I shouldn't rush anything, she's always been this shy. So Naruto, he pops a food pill and makes a bunch of shadow clones and gets back to his training. So we fast forward to the end of the 2 weeks, and Naruto and Sasuke are ready for the Chunin exam. Well, Sakura as well. Alright, let me stop making Sakura useless. I would say she was actually training with Kurenai, some genjutsu, because that's really the only realistic thing I see her doing if she wanted to learn anything useful. So the team meets up at the entrance of the academy, and immediately it is blocked by a bunch of genin trying to get through this one door that Chunins are blocking. So they manage to work their way around it, and while going through, Sasuke, he realizes that the sign, that isn't even the door they're supposed to go to, it is a genjutsu. So Sasuke, he tells this to Sakura and Naruto, and they make their way upstairs to the actual entrance for the first stage. So as they reach upstairs and are about to enter the room, Lee challenges Sasuke to a fight. Like, he comes up to them and he challenges Sasuke to a fight, and Sasuke, he just refuses because first off, it's rigged. Like, how can you ban your opponent from using the thing they're good at while allowing yourself to use something that you've trained your entire life at? That just isn't fair. And Sasuke, he doesn't want to reveal anything he has too early on, so he just tells Lee that they can fight in the actual exams. So when Team 7 walks in, they are immediately being stared down by a bunch of Chunins, a bunch of genins from different lands, like the land of grass, of sound, and the Leaf Village and sand. And they're kind of intimidated, but Naruto at this point, he's used to it, so he just goes to a side and sits down, and his teammates follow him. So while they're waiting, Naruto, he can sense someone just continually staring at him, and that is Gaara and his siblings. Gaara is just staring Naruto down, and he's wondering if he can sense that he's a Jinchuriki as well. But either ways, before he could get any more off that, Ibiki, he enters the room and tells everyone to straighten up because they're ready to start the first stage of the Chunin exams. So they start heading into the actual exam taking room, and everyone gets a seat. Like, they're assigned a specific seat so they're not next to their teammates. And Ibiki, he starts explaining how the first stage is gonna go. It's just a simple hour-long 10-question exam, but the first 9 questions are written, while they'll get the 10th question at the very end. So it doesn't seem too bad, but Ibiki, he says if anyone is caught cheating, they will be sent out and their entire team disqualified. So then that really set everyone up to just not cheat. But when they start, when Ibiki said start, they start going through the questions and pretty quickly realize that these questions are too difficult for an average genin to be able to answer. And some realize that the real objective of this is to cheat but not get caught doing it. So some people come up with really ingenious ways of doing this, like, well, Sasuke, he just copied the movements of someone who he sees writing, while others, they use the mirrors in the ceiling to like be able to look at other people's papers and write down their answers. So Naruto, he would actually be pretty decent at these questions. He wouldn't be completely clueless like he was in canon, because in this timeline, Naruto actually paid attention in class since from his previous life, he just realized how important some of these information would be. Even the simplest things he learned, they would be the deciding factor in some of the fights he had to come. So after the hour was up, 5 teams were disqualified because they were caught cheating. So after this, Ibiki, he started saying, now it's on to the 10th question. But before I give you the question, you have a chance to leave, because if you get this question wrong, you will be barred from taking the Chunin exams forever. And if you get it right, you get to move on to the second stage. And this dilemma really had some teams thinking if they should really drop out now, because they could just do it next year when they're more prepared. But some of them, actually a lot of them, decided to stay. Only 2 teams decided that they were going to leave. So Ibiki, he asks again, is everyone sure? And no one left. So he's like, okay, well, that was actually a logical deception. There is no 10th question. And everyone, they're like, oh, everyone just face palmed so hard because they were expecting this big reveal, but then it turned out to be nothing. So everyone is like, oh, come on. But in the middle of this, Anko, she busts through the window, sending glass shards everywhere. And Ibiki, he sees this and he said, Anko, how many times do I have to tell you? We have a door for a reason. And Anko is like, come on, don't be such a buzzkill, Ibiki, come on. And Ibiki, he's like, whatever. So he gathers the papers and walks out. And Anko, she tells everyone to meet her over at the Forest of Death. And Naruto, while he's walking over to the second stage, he's thinking that this is really where everything changed for Sasuke. This is where he got the curse mark and he got that inkling of power from Orochimaru that wanted him to continue. So at any cost, Naruto had to stop him. So Naruto and Team 7 are on their way over to the Forest of Death, and when they arrive, they see Anko standing on a massive boulder, and she starts telling them how the second stage is going to go. So she says, listen up, maggots. For the second stage of the Chunin exams, you guys will have to enter the Forest of Death. This forest is home to some of the strongest, deadliest, and biggest beasts in all of the Land of Fire. They can grow up to 20 times their normal size. So I would say good luck, but the truth is, most of you are gonna die. So let's get the show on the road. Head over to the tents on your left to receive a scroll. And the aim is to, by any means necessary, get another team scroll, then go to the center of the forest. So after some of the students are getting freaked out, they head over to the tents to receive their scrolls, and Team 7 got a earth scroll, and after getting this, they go to their assigned gates and wait for Anko's word to start. So, at the sound of an alarm, all the teams rush into the forest, and Naruto says to his team, let's head right. And Naruto is doing this to try and get off the path that they used in, well, what would be the canon story, like his canon story, just his past, like the timeline he's coming back from. So they head left and they start jumping from branch to branch, trying to find a team. And then the whole group stopped when they heard voices from below. And Naruto looked down and his eyes widened and he said without anyone hearing, I didn't think we'd run into them this early. Team Dosu. So Naruto says to Sasuke and Sakura, we need to take them down quickly. I just have a feeling they're pretty strong. Sakura, you're up. And in her head, Sakura was hyped that she could finally be helpful to her team. So she sat down and crossed her legs and performed a series of hand signs, then said, melting psyche. And from Dosu's perspective, he said, Zaku, Kin, let's get a move on already. And Zaku said, hold up, these berries are delicious, you want some? And Dosu folded his arms and said, no. He turned away and the trees around him started melting away and everything became this blur. And Dosu shouted out for his teammates, but they were experiencing the same thing as he was. He was just stuck in this blurry void, like he couldn't make out anything. And Sakura said to Naruto, it's working. And Naruto smiled and said, good. So he turned to Sasuke and said, let's search them for their scrolls. So he nodded and the two jumped down and Sasuke reached for Dosu's kunai pouch, but then the device on his arm started vibrating, sending out powerful sound waves, and this caused Sasuke and Naruto to stumble back, and it broke all three of the members of Team Dosu out of their genjutsu. And Sasuke and Naruto's ears started bleeding, and Team Dosu jumped back to take some time to get aware of their situation. And Zaku said, so you guys really thought you could beat us that easily? Well, think again. And Zaku pointed his palms towards them and said, I'll finish this in one move. And he shouted out, launching a huge air pressure attack. And Sasuke was ready to run to dodge, but Naruto grabbed him and said, stay close. And Naruto, he was thinking in his mind, I haven't mastered it, but it's now or never. And Naruto, still holding on to Sasuke, lightning release started surrounding his entire body. And keep in mind, this is all happening in a split second. So the little time he had, Naruto jumped back with Sasuke and landed on the tree behind them. Meanwhile, the attack that Zaku launched, it broke down a bunch of trees below them. So the lightning around Naruto started disappearing. Then he dropped to one knee and Naruto started breathing heavily and said, I don't know how the Raikage can use this so well. And Naruto got up, but then he heard Sakura screaming and he looked up and saw the female sound ninja grabbing Sakura by the hair. And Naruto said, Sasuke, go deal with her. I'll take care of these two. And Sasuke nodded and his Sharingan activated and he jumped up to Kin, and Sasuke, he threw kunais at her, but Kin moved Sakura in the way to use as a sort of meat shield. And Sasuke, though, he had wires attached to the kunais and he yanked them back before they hit her. Sasuke, I'll never become a burden to you. Not now and not ever. And she takes out a kunai and Sasuke is thinking she's about to stab Kin or something because she's pretty wide open. But Sakura cuts her hair off and jumps away, giving Sasuke a wide open shot. And Sasuke, he's just dumbfounded, really? You didn't have to do all of that. But Sasuke, he's gonna take this opportunity. So he started doing hand signs and said, fire style, great fireball jutsu. And Kin watched as this massive ball of fire, similar to the sun, came flying towards her, and she couldn't do anything but watch. So while this is happening, Naruto, he jumped down to the other two and he said, I'll give you a chance to surrender your scrolls now. And Zaku said, as if. And he ran towards Naruto, and Naruto, though, he was a lot faster. He speed blitzed Zaku, kicking him in the chest towards Dosu. And Dosu has just been observing Naruto's abilities, and he said, this kid is gonna be a problem. Zaku, get up. And he stumbles up, and Dosu said, I'll try to... But before he could say anything, Naruto started doing a bunch of hand signs, and both of them went on guard to prepare for anything Naruto would throw at them. And he said, water style, water shockwave jutsu. And a massive pillar of water started to form, and it started moving at high speeds towards Zaku and Dosu. And the two were about to jump away, but Naruto was one step ahead, and he did another series of hand signs and said, Earth style, Earth dome, and created this massive dome around the three of them. And the water came in at tremendous force, knocking the two of them against the Earth dome, causing serious damage, but they were still standing. And Zaku said, Dosu, how many elements does this kid have? And Dosu, he didn't respond, but he said to himself, This kid can use water style without a source, and he has 3 elements? We chose the wrong battle. But then Naruto, he wasn't finished. With the water now covering the floor, he was ready to finish this, and he said discharge and slammed his hand onto the water surface, and he pumped lightning release into the water, and this provided them almost 0 time to react because of how fast it was. And once the lightning reached the two, they were fried and passed out. So Naruto went over to them and started rummaging through their pockets and found a heaven scroll. And Naruto let out a sigh of relief. At least all of this wasn't a waste of time. So Naruto broke through the earth wall, and then Sasuke and Sakura showed up, and Naruto looked at Sakura and said, "I like the new hairdo," and she tried punching Naruto, but Naruto dodged and she fell over, and Naruto started laughing, but he quickly got serious and he showed his team the scroll he got from that team and said they got what they needed, so they need to head towards the center. But Naruto, before they head off, he said, "Wait, do you guys hear that?" And the two responded, "Hear what?" "It's sponsor time. Yes, your boy has a sponsor. It's not NordVPN, it's not Raid Shadow Legends, it's Fandom." Okay, hear me out. Fandom is a website that sells fire anime apparel, so start mowing lawns or steal your mom's credit card, because this is how you pull the ladies. How can they resist this drip? So make sure to use code IzuKage at checkout to save 5%. Now let's get back into the what if. So Naruto and his team are on the move, but then Naruto stopped on a branch and they do as well, and Naruto said, "I can sense someone powerful up ahead." And Sasuke said, "Bro, don't worry, we can take them. Like, we're Team 7. And Naruto, he's just like, "Bro, trust me, you don't want to." So Naruto, he did hand signs for shadow clones, and 3 appeared, and 2 of them did a transformation jutsu. One turned into Sasuke and the other into Sakura. And Naruto said he'll have these clones go up ahead while they take the long way around. So Naruto, he does this, he doesn't know there's anyone powerful up ahead, he's just making sure that these clones can be a sort of decoy for them if Orochimaru were to ever show up. So the clones stay on the path that they were gonna go on while Team 7 starts going into a different direction. So about an hour later, and Team 7, they're basically right outside the center of the Forest of Death, and Naruto, he starts seeing the experiences that the shadow clones went through. Just like he imagined, they encountered Orochimaru, and Orochimaru, he tried biting Sasuke's neck, but when he did, the clone just poofed. And that's when he realized the entire team was just filled with shadow clones, and he was pretty mad that he got duped. So after dispelling all of the clones, well, he doesn't know anything after that because the clones got dispelled. But Orochimaru, he would just head back to hiding for now until he can come out in the 3rd stage. So Team 7, they arrive at the center of the Forest of Death, and when they do, they get inside the building and open both of the scrolls, and from it Kakashi, he appears, and he's impressed by Team 7's time that they reached there. They're actually the first team there. So they were surprised by this because they took the long way. They thought a lot of people would be here in advance, but Kakashi, he just explained to them that, you know, they just have to wait for now while everyone arrives, and they'll get more information once everyone does. So Team 7, they decide to just chill in this little building. There are actually some bedrooms there, but in the bedrooms are just the floor. It's not really called a bedroom, it's just a room. So there's no furniture or anything in there, but Team 7, they decide to lay down for a bit, and after about a few hours, more teams start to arrive. Soon after them was Gaara, and then some of the other Leaf, Genin, and then the next day is when everyone was finally there. So as soon as this information got to Hiruzen, he came down and instructed everyone to enter this different area in the building. And once he got there, he explained to them that a lot of them managed to pass, which, you know, wasn't supposed to happen. So they'll be having some preliminary exams. In the crowd of everyone there, Naruto notices Team Dosu managed to make it as well as Gaara. So Hiruzen, he announces the matchups, and first would be Naruto versus Kiba. And hearing this, Kiba, he was happy. He was happier than ever. Finally, he can prove he's stronger than Naruto, and maybe, just maybe, Hinata will finally fall for him. So this is definitely not a day later. Let's just get back into it. So the proctor, he starts the match and Kiba said, "Let's go, Akamaru." And he throws a food pill at him and Akamaru's fur starts turning red. And he said, "Man beast clone." And Akamaru turned into an exact clone of Kiba. And they both ran at Naruto, who jumped up to dodge it. But now that Naruto is in the air, Kiba said, "Fang over fang." And they both started spinning really fast, like drills almost, and they went towards Naruto in the air. And since he can't dodge, Naruto crossed his arms over his chest to take the force of the attack, but also covered his arms in chakra, so when Kiba and Akamaru hit him, it reduced the force by a lot. It was like a light push instead of a full-blown attack. So Naruto landed and he was still just chilling, and Kiba got mad and said, "You damn Naruto, I'll take you down." And he threw smoke bombs at Naruto, and he and Akamaru did a fang over fang again, hoping to use the smoke to mask their movements. But from the stands, like, people could hear someone say, "Wind style, great breakthrough." And Naruto shot out wind, clearing the smoke and the entire area. And Naruto then sent lightning release all over his body and flew towards Kiba and Akamaru and punched both of them in their stomachs, sending them flying into the wall behind them, almost breaking through it. So the cloak around Naruto disappeared and Hiruzen was watching and he's just thinking, that's the Raikage's technique, isn't it? And Kakashi, like, he was more surprised, like, what else is Naruto hiding? Like what more can this kid do? So the proctor declared Naruto the winner and some medical ninja carried Kiba away. So Naruto returns to the stands and the next match goes pretty similar to canon, except Sasuke has an easier time since he can use ninjutsu, which makes this work a lot easier. He makes easy work of his opponents. So after everyone is over and done with, Hiruzen announces the matchups for the finals, like the third stage of the exams. So these would stay the same: Naruto versus Neji, Sasuke versus Gaara, Shikamaru versus Temari, Shino versus Kankuro. And after he tells them this, Hiruzen also informs them that they have a month to train between now and the third stage. So with that, everyone, they go home or to wherever they're staying. Like the Sand Ninja, they're just renting an apartment or something. I don't know. So after getting home, Naruto, he takes a shower and the entire time he's thinking about his meeting with Jiraiya. Like, how is that gonna go? Because he was at his lowest point when he died, and now to see him again, it's just unreal to him. He doesn't know if he'll be able to keep it together. So after finishing up, Naruto, he goes to his living room and writes up a training routine he would want to follow during this whole month training period that he has. And the main thing he's trying to get better at is the lightning cloak, because Naruto can only stay in it for like 2 seconds. And I should also mention, you guys might be like, the lightning cloak, that's so random. But considering some of the last memories that Naruto did have before being sent back was with the Raikage and Minato, and I just feel like it would make some funny situations in the future. So yeah, so the next day rolls around and Naruto knows this is the day that he will meet Jiraiya. So he decides to go to the hot springs, and when he's walking up and getting closer and closer, his heart is beating really fast. And then once it's in sight, Naruto, he sees no one. Actually, he's confused and he's wondering if he mixed up the dates or something happened. But I mean, he's already here, so why not go for a dip in the actual hot springs? So he walks in with just a towel on, and the steam makes seeing around him really hard. But as he's about to step into this hot springs, Naruto sees out of the corner of his eye someone by the wall. and he whips his head around and squints and he can make out someone, and Naruto is thinking, wait, isn't that the wall separating male from female? And Naruto got mad and he said out loud while walking towards this guy, "You damn pervert!" And he tries pushing the guy out of the way, but he quickly dodges and jumps back. Naruto looked up and sees this older guy with long white hair and red paint running from his eyes down to the side of his face. And Naruto froze. This old man started saying, "Kid, you need to watch where you're going. You're interrupting my research." And Jiraiya went back to peek, and after a few seconds he looked back to Naruto and he was still just standing there, and he raised an eyebrow and said, "Kid, you alright?" But Naruto still didn't make any moves, and Jiraiya walked up to Naruto and tapped him on the shoulder. Then out of nowhere, Naruto jumped onto Jiraiya and started hugging him as tight as possible. And Jiraiya said, "Kid, you're killing me, stop." But Naruto was hugging him and crying and they both fell over, but Naruto held on even tighter and said, "I'm never letting you go ever again." And Jiraiya said, "Kid, who even are you? Get off me." And then it just hit Naruto that, he's probably acting really weird, and Naruto let go and said, "Sorry sir, I thought you were someone else." And Jiraiya said, "Well, you better say sorry. You almost ruined my new book." And he looked down at his hands and said, "Wait, where's my book?" And he started looking around, like feeling all across the ground because the steam is still really hard to see through. And then Jiraiya noticed it was floating in the hot spring, so he jumped in to get it, and luckily all of the ink was still intact. The pages were just wet, and Jiraiya walked out and started twisting his hair dry, and Naruto came up and asked him, "You're Jiraiya the Toad Sage, right?" And Jiraiya smiled, he felt a bit proud and said, "You're clumsy, but at least you're smart to see greatness when it's right in front of you." And Naruto then asked Jiraiya if he could train him, and of course, at this point, Jiraiya, he was annoyed with Naruto, but he said, "Alright, if you can catch me, I'll train you." And Jiraiya is thinking that, he'll be able to get away really easily. And Naruto, he says, "Okay, that sounds fair to me." And Jiraiya was smiling all the way out the door, and he changed into his usual clothes and started booking it. And Jiraiya, he was jumping from rooftop to rooftop, and he looked behind him, and Naruto was nowhere close to him. But when he turned around, Naruto was just standing there with his arms folded, and Jiraiya quickly stopped running before he bumped into him. And Jiraiya, he's thinking how the hell did he get in front of me? And Naruto touched him on the shoulder and said, "So can you train me now?" And Jiraiya is in his head thinking, this kid truly is something else. Seems the child of prophecy really is him. And Jiraiya laughed and said, "I wasn't really trying, but you proved yourself. Follow me." And Jiraiya took Naruto to a waterfall that made a river, and it was all surrounded by just a bunch of trees. Jiraiya then turned to Naruto and said, "Let's see how much of the basics you truly know." So they went through basic things like wall walking, water walking, and Jiraiya was like, "Okay, well, what about the elements?" And Naruto showed Jiraiya that he was already able to use all 5 chakra natures. And at this point, Jiraiya was absolutely dumbfounded. But he made sure not to show how amazed he was. He was like, okay, that's alright, I guess. So they finished that day, and Jiraiya didn't really teach Naruto anything, just went through stuff that he already knew. And between, after they finished training, Jiraiya, he went to Hiruzen's office and he couldn't stop talking about how amazed he was at Naruto. And he was even more amazed when Hiruzen told him that no one taught Naruto. He has no teacher. He's just been training on his own. Jiraiya simply can't wrap his head around it, but this just goes to show that Naruto really is something special. So on their next day of training, Jiraiya had Naruto sign a contract with the Toads, and after showing him the hand seals to do it, Jiraiya said, "Don't worry if your first summoning is really small, you'll get it eventually." And Naruto just simply said okay, and after he bit his thumb, he did the hand signs and said summoning jutsu, and a massive smoke cloud appeared, revealing Gamabunta, the chief toad himself, and Jiraiya's jaw dropped. Gamabunta took another hit of his cigar or whatever he's smoking, must be that toad weed only available in Mount Myoboku. So he blows out the smoke and he said, Jiraiya, why did you summon me? And Jiraiya scratched the back of his head and said, about that, I didn't summon you. It was that kid on top of your head. And Chief Toad looked up and sees this kid and he's like, be serious. And Gamabunta tries throwing Naruto off, but he's on there. He's stuck on. He's just chilling. And how he's doing this, he's using his chakra to stay attached like he would while climbing walls or water walking. So Gamabunta, this goes on for hours. Like he's trying to throw him off. He's doing the most to get Naruto off, and he didn't even slip once. And Jiraiya is surprised he even survived. So as the days go on, Naruto learns from Jiraiya things that he picked up from being a ninja for such a long time, going through wars, and also showed Naruto how to do a combination jutsu with the toads. And also refined his taijutsu. So on the day of the third stage, Naruto, he wakes up, throws on some clothes, and has a nice big bowl of ramen. And he heads out to the stadium where it'll be taking place. And Naruto, he enters the arena for the third stage of the Chunin exams, and he's looking around at these massive walls and the seats lined with people. And Naruto remembers the fond memories he had of this day, but then he remembers that, you know, he's not supposed to be messing around. A lot of people died on this day, so he has to make sure to protect them all, especially Hiruzen. So the proctor has all the genin go up to the stadium just to watch, except Naruto and Neji. They stand there facing each other, and the proctor says, begin. So we left off right as Naruto and Neji's match was about to start. So before it does, Neji says, I've heard a lot about you and let's hope you live up to the hype. And he got into his signature stance and Naruto said, don't be so cocky or else you'll regret it. With that, Neji rushes at Naruto, trying to getting as close as possible because that's where most of his techniques are most effective. So Naruto, he didn't expect Neji to move this fast. It's like he trained even harder than his original timeline. So Neji tried striking one of Naruto's chakra points, but he blocked it with his hand, and he and Neji started going back and forth in a heated taijutsu battle. And Hiyashi, he was watching this entire thing from the stands, and he says to himself, to think someone could match the Hyuga's perfected taijutsu technique. He truly takes after his father. So back with Naruto, he kicks Neji back to create some distance, but he blocked using his arm, but still Neji, he got sent flying back. And Naruto said, I must admit you're faster than I expected, but not fast enough. And Naruto focused chakra into his feet and it converted into lightning release. And Neji, he thought quickly, just seeing the sparks of lightning. Before Naruto even ran at him, he said rotation. And Naruto ran right into Neji's chakra barrier, and for the few seconds he was stunned for, because literally Naruto just ran max speed into a barrier. Imagine running full speed into a wall, it would not be fun. So Neji uses this opportunity and crouches down and says, 8 trigrams, 64 palms, and he runs at Naruto and starts jabbing at his chakra points. And with each chakra point he strikes, he starts counting them because, I don't know, he wants Naruto to hear it or something. He's like, goes to 2 palms, to 4, to 8, to 16, to 32. And when he lands his final blow, he says 8 trigrams, 64 palms. And this sends Naruto flying back before landing and sliding across the ground. And Hinata is in the stands and she couldn't watch this. She turned away, and Sakura, who was sitting right next to her, said, Hinata, you shouldn't look away. I've been on a team with Naruto long enough to know that he has way more in store, and something that weak is not going to take him down. So Neji slowly starts walking towards Naruto, and he stood over him and said, you are definitely a prodigy, But I'm a generational prodigy, the ones that stand above the rest in terms of strength. And before walking off, he said again, "You fought well." And as Neji, he's walking off, the proctor, he was about to declare him the winner, but then the sky started becoming overcast and just the overall atmosphere in the entire arena became heavy. And Neji started looking around and he turned to Naruto and a faint red chakra started swirling around him and bubbling up from his skin. And Neji, he's confused. He activated his Byakugan and the chakra points he just blocked were forced open by this mysterious red chakra. And the chakra around him started pushing Naruto up and he was now standing without using his arms or legs to help him get up. He just rose up and the chakra around Naruto started forming a single tail behind him. And the Anbu members that are next to Hiruzen who were there to protect him, they all pulled out scrolls and said, "Should we take care of this?" But Hiruzen, he was way chiller than they expected. He said, "Don't worry, it's under control." And they were confused but decided to watch. And Neji said, "So, you had some spare chakra? Whatever, I'll defeat you again." But then Naruto disappeared from Neji's vision and instinctively he started doing rotation. While in the stands, Tenten is relentlessly praising Neji over and over, saying how nothing can get through his rotation. Everyone around her is annoyed. So they're all trying to ignore her and focus back on the match. And they see Naruto appear behind Neji and drew his hand back and punched through the rotation and dragged Neji out, throwing him across the arena and into the arena walls, like going all the way through it. And Naruto, he was thinking, oh, I went a bit overboard, but this entire time he just remembered Neji's fight with Hinata in the preliminaries, so he had to get some payback for her. So the proctor runs to the hole Neji's body made through the wall, and Neji, he is out cold, so he announces Naruto to be the winner. And the crowd was in uproar. This demon brat against the Hyuga's prodigy, there's no way he could have won. But they couldn't do anything about it. Naruto won fair and square. So Naruto returns to the stands while medical ninjas go and attend to Neji's injuries. So after everything was cleared up, the hole was patched up by someone with Earth Release. Next up was Gaara versus Sasuke, and this time Sasuke is there, so the match is not going to be postponed. So as both of their names were called, Gaara, he just jumped down to get into the arena. But before Sasuke left, Naruto, he stopped him, wished him good luck, and Sasuke just nods back and he goes to go fight his match. Meanwhile, Naruto, he walks off to an area in the arena hallways where no one could see him, and he made a shadow clone while his original self returned to the stands to, watch Sasuke to start cheering for him whenever he's winning. His clone though went up to where the Hokage was seated, but it remained out of sight, just for when stuff is gonna hit the fan. I don't want to curse because, YouTube will monetize me, but besides the point. So as Sasuke match begins, the real Naruto starts to look around the stands and they see ninjas in robes spread across the entire stands. So real quick, we switch to Kakashi's perspective and he sees these ninjas as well and he says to himself, it seems Hiruzen's intel was correct. So Kakashi then looked to Guy and they both nodded at each other, and so did Kurenai and Asuma. So you might be wondering how they know about the attack that's gonna happen. Well, the day before these exams, Hiruzen briefed them on a possible attack that he got from some of his reconnaissance ninjas in the Land of Wind. So basically all the Jonins in the stands, they are on guard. So back with Naruto, and he's watching Sasuke and Gaara's match, and he sees Sasuke standing at the top of the arena walls with two tomoe in each of his eyes. And Sasuke then did a series of hand signs and said, "Chidori," and put his hand down, and his lightning release came out of his hand, and he started sprinting down the wall with the Chidori tearing the ground apart beneath him. So he's gaining a lot of speed from running down the wall, and then he ran up to Gaara and shoved it through the sand surrounding Gaara, and it tore through his shoulder. Because of the pain, Gaara screamed out, and hearing this, Temari and Kankuro, they started getting scared because Gaara, he's never been injured like this before. So the sand surrounding Gaara shot out some spikes, forcing Sasuke to jump back, but he didn't incur any serious injuries, just a few cuts. So Gaara, he's letting out this blood-curdling scream, and everyone in the stands, like a chill run down their back. And Naruto is seeing Kankuro and Temari's reaction, and he knows that it's about to happen. So from the small hole in Gaara's sand barrier that Sasuke made with his Chidori, the arm of Shikaku reached out and tried slamming Sasuke against the ground, but he easily jumped away because it was pretty slow. And Kankuro and Temari's heart sank when they saw that arm. And Kankuro is like, is that thing taking over Gaara again? And Temari, she said in a really shaky voice, like, I don't know. And Gaara's Jonin sensei, who was sitting in the stands, is saying, Gaara, you damn fool! At that moment, the sand around Gaara started to fall, revealing Gaara in his half Shikaku state. And seeing this, the Konoha crush was signaled to begin. And the ninjas in robes standing at the back of everyone in the stands, they started doing hand signs, but Kakashi, along with all the other Jonins who were informed, took them down almost immediately. So up in the stands where the two Hokage are seated, Orochimaru, who is disguised as a Kazekage, he sees all of his Shan Shinobi get taken down almost immediately, and the explosions that were set around the village that were supposed to go off aren't going off. He doesn't hear or feel any sort of vibration that would indicate an explosion, and he's looking around wondering what happened. And that's when he heard a strange sound behind him, and when he looked around, Naruto's clone ran up with a Rasengan in hand and slammed it into Orochimaru's face. This blew Orochimaru back into a wall, and Naruto quickly turned to Hiruzen and said he'll handle the rest, but Hiruzen reached out and dragged Naruto out of the way because a snake with a sword coming out of his mouth just tried to stab Naruto. And Orochimaru runs to the top of the arena, and Naruto and Hiruzen follow. But Naruto, before he could tell Hiruzen to just get out of here, the Sound Four rushes in and make the four-corner barrier. Meanwhile, this is all happening, the original Naruto is hot on Gaara's trail, while Sasuke is lagging behind because he had to deal with Kankuro, Temari, and some other Sand Shinobi. So Naruto finally catches up to Gaara, and he knows that he needs to show Gaara that the people around him care about him, that he is loved, but he can't do that without taking him down first. So Naruto and Gaara start staring each other down, and Naruto's body then began to spark all over, and he disappeared and reappeared behind Gaara. Naruto then kicked him up into the air and keeps jumping off trees, kicking him again and again and again, sort of mimicking Lee's primary lotus. And then while in the air, Naruto spun around and kicked Gaara down back towards the ground, and his face slammed into a bunch of tree branches on the way down, and Gaara slammed into the ground, creating a massive crater, and he was knocked out almost instantly. And then at this point, Naruto, he was thinking, oh, I might have went a bit too hard. But as he said this, a massive smoke cloud appeared, revealing Shikaku in its full B state, towering over Naruto. So Naruto, without much thought, he bit into his thumb and said, summoning jutsu. And Sasuke, who was just arriving on scene, he got pushed back by the tremendous force of the smoke coming from Naruto's summoning. And due to how massive this summoning was, some of the trees got knocked over, and the ground itself it felt like a tremor. And there he was, Gamabunta. The chief toad took another hit from his pipe and said, so, Shikaku, huh? Kid, do you have a plan to take him down? And Naruto smirked and said, yeah, So he put his hand together and said, "Transform." And from the smoke, the nine tails rushed towards Shikaku, sinking its claws into its shoulder. And Naruto jumped off the nine tails head and reeled back his hand, ready to finish this off, wake Gaara up. But then Shikaku opened its mouth and swallowed Naruto whole. So for this part, I'm going off of that one episode where Naruto was swallowed by Son Goku and got to talk to him. So hopefully that would make the scene make more sense for you guys. So Naruto falls down into darkness before stopping when he hits the ground. And Naruto, he's looking around and Kurama says to him, "Shikaku should be here." So Naruto starts walking around looking for Shikaku, but in the distance he sees something in the dark, like a distant light. So he runs up to it, and what he sees shocks him. Naruto doesn't see Shikaku, but he sees Gaara chained down to the ground. And Shikaku, he's thinking like Shikaku must have switched places with Gaara when he broke free. And Naruto ran up to Gaara and kneeled down and said, "Are you okay?" And Gaara looked up to Naruto and said, "Why are you here?" And Naruto was confused what he meant by this and replied, "I'm obviously here to save you." And Gaara turned away from Naruto and said, "I don't need saving. Shikaku has taken control and there's nothing I can do but wait for it to get bored." At this point, Gaara had really just given up. He was content with Shikaku taking control of him and doing whatever the beast wants. But Naruto was not giving up so easily, and he said, "Gaara, you need to take control. If not for me, do it for Kankuro and Temari." And Gaara raised an eyebrow and said, "Why would I ever fight for them?" And Naruto looked at Gaara and said, "Because they're fighting for you. They love you, Gaara. You three are blood. And strong bonds make you stronger because you have something to fight for." And Naruto stood up and said, "Right now, it's up to you." So we switched to Gamabunta's perspective, and he still has, he's still in the Nine Tails form and has his claws synced into Shikaku's shoulders, just thinking that I can't hold on any longer. "Naruto, where the heck are you?" So Shikaku sucks in a bunch of air and he's about to let out a wind bullet. Then the beast just poofed into smoke and Naruto and Gaara were just standing there unharmed. And Naruto gave Gamabunta a thumbs up and he poofed away back to Mount Miyaboku. So we switch perspectives to Hiruzen and Naruto's clone standing off against Orochimaru and Hashirama. The reason why it's just Hashirama is because with Naruto's clone there, they actually managed to stop the second and fourth Hokage from being reanimated by Orochimaru. So they're standing on one of the branches from a jutsu Hashirama just used. And then Naruto's clone turned to Hiruzen and reached into his kunai pouch and pulled out a 3-pronged kunai and gave it to him. And Hiruzen, he was confused why Naruto even had this. And then he was like, "Wait, isn't this Minato's?" And then the clone dispels and Hiruzen, he was so confused, like, what is Naruto doing? But due to his confusion, he wasn't paying attention to Hashirama, who was right in front of him, and he blitzed Hiruzen and punched him across the face, sending him flying over and slamming into the walls of the barrier. And as Hiruzen is falling down, Hashirama clasped his hands together and said, "Wood style, wood spear." And from the ground, a wooden spear shot out towards Hiruzen. But before it hit him, he manages to dodge it and then starts sliding down the side of the wall. And Hiruzen is watching Hashirama keenly because he's ready to use one of his jutsus. But then Naruto appeared in front of him with a clone, like he just teleported in front of him or something. And Naruto grabbed his clone and he grabbed the hand of his clone and spun around and threw it towards Hashirama. And Hashirama, he was just ready to dodge the clone, but Naruto's clone had a Rasengan in its hand, and when it got close enough, it slammed it into Hashirama, sending him spinning and flying back towards Orochimaru, and both of them slammed together and hit into the barrier wall. So Naruto, knowing he doesn't have much time left because they're not going to be down for a really long time, he turned to Hiruzen and started explaining to him a plan that he has for taking down Orochimaru as well as Hashirama. So Naruto weaved a few hand signs and he slammed his hand into the ground, and from the smoke appeared a massive scroll. And Hiruzen raised an eyebrow and said, "What are you gonna do with that?" But Naruto just said, "Just watch." So Orochimaru and Hashirama, they began to recover and got up and looked towards where they last saw Naruto and Hiruzen, but they weren't there. And from the forest that Hashirama made, like while Naruto was fighting Shikaku, a kunai came flying out of it, but Hashirama, he simply just blocked it. And from the smoke, Naruto appeared and he reached down and grabbed Hashirama, holding him still. And then the actual Naruto jumped out of the forest with the massive scroll. And then he started doing a bunch of hand signs once again and slammed his hand onto the seal that was written into the scroll, because this scroll was just a massive seal that Naruto managed to recover from the Uzumaki clan. So from the scroll, a bunch of writing shot out of the scroll and towards Hashirama, and then it started encircling Hashirama and Naruto's clone. And Orochimaru, he tried knocking Naruto away, but he tried, like when he tried punching him, like a barrier stopped him from doing it, and then a light shined up, and then both Naruto's clone and Hashirama got sucked down into the seal. But before Naruto's clone could be completely sealed, it poofed, and so it was just Hashirama that got sealed into the scroll. So Orochimaru, who was looking at some of the markings from the seal, his mind was blown away, because this is some advanced Fuinjutsu, and he looked towards Naruto and said, "How is this kid a master sealer?" But the thing is, Naruto isn't, which I should have mentioned. He went to the Uzumaki, well, the remains of the Uzumaki's clan, and that was one of the things he recovered. It's definitely not plot convenience. I would never, guys. I take pride into my. Let's continue. So Orochimaru, he's up against Naruto as well as Hiruzen, and as you can imagine, this didn't last long for him. Naruto, the kunai that was still next to Orochimaru that Naruto threw earlier to seal Hashirama, Naruto, he made a clone, and that clone formed a Rasengan, and he infused his wind chakra into the Rasengan. And then the clone teleported right in front of Orochimaru and slammed it into his chest. And we know the Rasenshuriken, it attacks the opponents at a cellular level. So Orochimaru is almost completely dead at this point. Of course, the clone didn't survive the attack, so it was dispelled, and Naruto returned to Hiruzen, and Hiruzen said, "When did you learn Flying Raijin?" And Naruto smiled and said, "I've been working on it for a while." So as they're talking, the barrier surrounding them fell, and the Sound Four quickly grabbed Orochimaru and went to escape. And Hiruzen was asking Naruto, like, shouldn't we take care of him now? Like, completely kill him? And Naruto said, nah, he's gonna become an asset to the Leaf in the future. And with that, the Konoha crush was officially stopped. No one dead and no buildings were destroyed. And Naruto, he was proud of the amount of people he managed to save. So far off into the distance, into one of the trees nearby, two people are standing there watching Naruto. And one of them said, "So, this is the kid you've been talking so highly of." And the other person said, "Yes, master." So the first guy took a while to speak, but he said he could become an issue in the future. Keep an eye on his movements and report back if you see anything suspicious. You two got that? And both voices said simultaneously, "Yes, master." So after rounding up all of the Sand Shinobi who were captured, Hiruzen had them escorted back to their village as Naruto suggested. So in his office, Hiruzen called in Team 7 and he says, "I'm getting a bit old for the title of Hokage. I want you to look for Tsunade, one of the legendary Sannin." And he gave all four of them a small picture of her, and Naruto, he already knows where Tsunade is, so it won't even take that long. So with this new mission, the team heads out to find the next Hokage, Tsunade. And as they're jumping from branch to branch, Naruto says, maybe we could check some of the bars first. And he says like there's one nearby. But before Kakashi could even question Naruto's decision, he jumped ahead of everyone, so they all just followed where Naruto was going. And they ended up going to a bar, and as they walk in, Kakashi immediately spots Tsunade. She has her head down drinking some sake because she just lost a bunch of money from the owner of this bar that she tried to bribe, but it didn't work out because she's, of course, the legendary sucker. So Team 7 walks up to Tsunade's table and they sit down, and the entire time they're trying to convince her to come back with them to the village because the village really needs her aid because of, well, not a lot of people were injured in the Konoha crush, but there is still definitely a lot of injured, like Lee, his legs were still shattered by Gaara. And a lot of people like that, so they're just in desperate need of her help and for her to become Hokage as well. Despite all of their attempts to persuade her, Naruto, he already knows she's not coming back so easily if they continue like this, so he makes a bet with her. Naruto proposes, if I can learn the Rasengan in a single day, you'll come back to the village with us, and if I don't, Hiruzen will clear your entire debt. And hearing that last part, Tsunade's eyes turned into dollar signs, and without even thinking, she says deal. And Shizune tries stopping her, but Tsunade, she was already in it. So Naruto got up and said, well, let's go. And Tsunade, she's rightfully confused, like, you said you have a day to learn the Rasengan, so we'll meet up back here tomorrow. And Naruto says, no, we're leaving right now because I already know it. And Naruto extends out his hand and blue chakra starts swirling around into an orb, creating the Rasengan. And the sound of it, there's no mistaking that this is the Rasengan. So Naruto said, pack your bags, we have a few hours until nightfall. And Tsunade, she shot up out of her chair and said, hey, that's not fair, you tricked me. And Naruto shrugged and said, you agreed to it, so I get to packing. And Naruto walked out with Shizune holding Tsunade back so she doesn't go and beat Naruto up. So 2 hours later, Tsunade, her pet pig, and Shizune returned to the bar and with their stuff. So Team 7 accompanying the future Hokage, they head back to the village. And when I say this is not going to take any time, Naruto does this in a day, when in canon, I'm pretty sure it took either a week or multiple weeks. So they arrive in the village and the elders were delighted to see Tsunade because they were discussing who would become the next Hokage, and here Tsunade is, she just fell into their laps. So with that, Tsunade was quickly appointed as the next Hokage. So 2 days go by and Tsunade, she's slowly starting to get into her role as the Hokage, doing paperwork, stuff the Hokage would normally do. So on this particular day, Jiraiya appeared at the Hokage's window and he tapped on the glass, and Tsunade, she was a bit she jumped a bit and turned around and she was surprised to see him there. So she opened the window and Jiraiya said, why hello Lord Hokage. And Tsunade laughed and said, knock it off. What do you want, Jiraiya? And Jiraiya looked a bit sad and said, do I really need a reason to come see you? And Jiraiya walked up extremely close to Tsunade, like he was right in her face as he said that. And Tsunade, she blushed a bit and backed off and sat into her desk and said, I've got a lot of work to do. And Jiraiya said, I figured, well, I'll be taking Naruto and Sasuke out of the village. So they explore and get stronger along the way. And Tsunade was actually really on board with the idea, since she knows that they need to see the outside world and basically know what it's like. I mean, it's not good to be cooped up in one place your entire life, basically. So with the Hokage's approval, Jiraiya told Naruto and Sasuke about it, and the next day they were there waiting at the gate, extremely excited to leave the Leaf Village for this long extended period of time. So they all had their backpacks filled with essentials, just ready to start their journey. So for the first year of the time skip, Naruto, Sasuke, and Jiraiya traveled all over the ninja world. They went as far east as the land of lightning and as far north as the land of iron. Of course, it wasn't a safe trip, you know, they were attacked multiple times. But with all three of them together, basically no one could take them down unless it was some organized group. But no mercenary just trying to steal their money is ever going to take these three down. But apart from that, the two got a lot of insight into how people live in foreign lands and their culture they have there. And they also learned a lot of jutsu from the locals. But throughout their journey, even though Sasuke was really happy to be training with a legendary Sannin, he wanted to fight his own battles, he wanted to grow strong on his own and get strong enough to fight Itachi so he can finally learn the truth. So at around the second year into the time skip, Sasuke split off from Jiraiya and Naruto. But before leaving, Jiraiya gave Sasuke a parting gift. It was a map to show him where he could gain a lot of power, but we'll get back to Sasuke a bit later on. So Jiraiya took Naruto to Mount Miyaboku, like he reverse summoned both of them there, and to begin his Toad Sage training. And in canon, this training took about a week, but Naruto was rushing and he had to go back to the leaf when Pain was attacking. So Naruto, he wasn't the best at it, but with Naruto now having months on end to train at Mount Miyaboku, Naruto learned a lot more advanced versions of things he was doing in canon, like how to absorb nature energy. But during his training, Naruto never used toad oil at all, so it did take longer, but Naruto used this experience to learn how to absorb nature energy while moving. So Naruto doesn't need to merge with the toads to do it, he can just be running and at the same time taking in nature energy. And now Naruto, he also learned how to throw the Rasenshuriken just like in canon. So in all, Naruto stayed on Mount Miyaboku for a little over a year. But before they returned to the Leaf Village, Naruto asked for the key to the Nine-Tails seal. And at first, Jiraiya, he was obviously hesitant, but Naruto showed Jiraiya he and the Kyuubi are basically friends. Like, he would ask for chakra and the Kyuubi would give Naruto without much issue. He goes up to 6 tails no problem, and Jiraiya was shocked to say the least, and he summoned the toad with the key to the seal. And after placing his hand onto the seal, the frog rolled it back up and it hopped into Naruto's mouth, and he started coughing and said, "It's as disgusting as I remember." So Naruto entered his mindscape and opened the cage of the Nine-Tails, and Naruto extended his fist and said, "Glad to see you out of that cage, it looks pretty cramped." And Kurama walked out with a smile on his face and he extended his fist as well, fist bumping Naruto and said, "I guess being your Jinchuriki isn't so bad after all." So with that, Naruto trained at Mount Miyaboku, well, mainly focused on using Kurama's chakra for another 5 months before returning to the Leaf Village far stronger than he left it. So we switched perspectives real quick to Deidara and Sasori, and they were on a clay bird flying over to the sand village ready to take the One-Tails. And when they get to the sand village, Deidara, he starts making explosions with the mouth in his palm, and when he's ready to drop them, he gets stopped by Sasori and he says, "Look down." And Deidara, he looks down and he's like, what am I supposed to be seeing? Let's destroy the village already. And then he says, "Focus. There's not a single light or any loud noise in what's supposed to be one of the great villages. Something's up." And he has Deidara fly down, and when they get there, they start looking around and the entire village has been evacuated. Literally, no one is around. So back with Naruto, he turned to Jiraiya and said, "Give me a quick second, I have to go take care of something." And Naruto disappeared, and he appeared next to Gaara, who's standing on top of the Kazekage's office. And Naruto says, "Good, you got my message." And Gaara said, "Yeah, I evacuated everyone like you asked. What's your plan?" And Naruto said, to defeat them in one move. And Naruto made 4 shadow clones, and they all started absorbing nature energy and ran and jumped really high into the sky. And all 5 Narutos made Rasenshurikens, which he can do without a clone to infuse the wind chakra. Because of his training at Mount Miyaboku, Naruto can just do it with one hand. And all of them threw it towards Sasori and Deidara, and Sasori stopped and said, "Do you hear something?" And they both went silent to listen, and that's when they hear the Rasen Shuriken coming towards them. But by that time, it's already too late. They tried jumping away, but the Rasen Shurikens expanded, ripping both Akatsuki members to shreds. So Gaara, he was amazed at Naruto's power, and when he landed, Gaara was like, "You have to teach me that someday." And Naruto said sure and disappeared, and all his clones dispersed. So Naruto appeared next to Jiraiya and said, "Let's not keep the Hokage waiting." So they walked to Tsunade's office, but Naruto was recognized by Hinata like on his way over there. And she was still her shy self and said, I'm happy to see you, Naruto." And Naruto said, "Oh, I'm happy to see you too. I'm going to the Hokage's office, but when I'm done, do you want to grab some ramen?" And Hinata's cheeks went completely red, and she said to herself, "Is Naruto asking me out on a date?" I know, my Hinata voice is impeccable, but let's continue with the story. She stood there for about a minute, and when she looked up, Naruto, he was already gone, and Hinata is kicking herself for not saying anything sooner. So when Jiraiya and Naruto enter Tsunade's office, they see a man with black hair and dark clothes already standing by her desk, and he turned around to see who entered the room, and when he did, Naruto immediately recognized him, and Naruto ran up and hugged him, and this guy was Sasuke, and he hugged back, and Naruto, when he released the hug, he's like, "Well, what did you learn?" And Sasuke started to explain that Jiraiya's map took him to the White Snake Sage, and it bit Sasuke, giving him its power. So Sasuke basically has all these snake abilities off Orochimaru. So Sasuke spent 3 months getting used to his new abilities, and you might be wondering like what Sasuke did for the other year he was out. Well, he went searching for Itachi. And as I'm telling you this, Sasuke, he's telling Naruto all of this, and Naruto says, "Well, did you find him?" And Sasuke closed his eyes and opened it, revealing his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. And Naruto was really excited for Sasuke. He was happy to see him grow this strong. But Tsunade cleared her throat like, "It's good to see you too, Naruto," like in a sarcastic way for Naruto ignoring her. And Naruto scratched the back of his head and said, "Oh, sorry, I was too caught up in the moment." And Tsunade said, "It's fine. Jiraiya briefed me on your growth, and I must say, I'm impressed with both of you. You both deserve some time to rest." And as they're leaving, Tsunade said, "Wait, I almost forgot." And she pulled out Jonin vest and said, "You two are more than capable for it." So Naruto, he's thinking in his head, like this is exactly how he imagined an ideal future. But for the enemies to come, Naruto would need help, like he wouldn't be able to do this on his own. So with Sasuke, Jiraiya, and Tsunade present, Naruto begins to tell them about his secret, that he's from the future, and Naruto goes into detail about everything that happened in his previous timeline, how Jiraiya died and Sasuke wanted to destroy the village, and the reappearance of Madara, everything about the Ten Tails and the Akatsuki. And hearing all of this, they were all a bit overwhelmed, but to end it off, Naruto said, "I've been working hard to ensure that our future remains safe, but with the 4th Great Ninja War in sight, I need your guys' help and the help of all the other 5 Kage." And Jiraiya was the first to process everything, and he said, "So what should we be expecting next? Like, what's the big battle that we should all be worried about?" And Naruto said, "Well, 2 things. Team Asuma should not leave the village anytime soon. and that the leader of the Akatsuki would be planning to attack the village, but he took down 2 of their members today, so right now he's not sure when they would launch the attack. So we actually switch perspectives to Pain and some of the other Akatsuki members, and Zetsu dropped the body of Deidara on the ground and the wood parts of Sasori, since he was like a puppet. And Pain looked at them and said, "Did he do this?" And Zetsu nodded and said, I was spying on him this entire time, but around a year and a half ago, the kid and Jiraiya reverse summoned somewhere and I didn't know where. And he just showed up again today and killed 2 of our members, and Sasuke killed Itachi. And Pain started walking off slowly and said, "If we keep leaving him, he'll continue getting stronger and stronger. We need to capture Naruto Uzumaki, not just for the 9 Tails, but if he keeps interfering with our plans, we won't be able to summon the 10 Tails." And Pain turned towards Zetsu and said, "Tell everyone to return immediately. We're launching an assault on the Leaf." So back at the Leaf Village, Naruto managed to find Hinata after he was done talking with Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Sasuke, and they decided to have some ramen like Naruto planned, and Naruto was surprised Hinata liked ramen as much as he did, and Teiuchi said to him that she came here almost every day while he was gone, and Naruto was actually shocked. So for the next few days, Naruto and Sasuke are just catching up on some much needed relaxation, because Pain is not supposed to arrive for another month or so. So Naruto is chilling at home, and that's when he hears a massive explosion. And Naruto activates his Sage mode and he can sense powerful ninjas attacking the village. So Naruto quickly puts on his ninja gear, and as he was running out, he sees Sasuke as well already running towards the village. So he caught up with him and the 2 ran towards the gate of the Leaf Village. And there they saw multiple members of the Akatsuki, all of the Paths of Pain, Kisame, Hidan, and Kakuzu. And that doesn't sound like everyone. Well, Zetsu and Tobi are out getting reinforcements while Konan is by Nagato's real body. Naruto said to Sasuke, "This is it. Winning this will stop the war before it even begins." And Sasuke nods and the 2 rush into battle, and Naruto activates his Sage mode while Sasuke activates his EMS. And Naruto rushed to the main Path of Pain, but before he could get close, the Ashura Path sent multiple missiles towards Naruto, causing him to jump back, but Naruto has fought all of them already, so he knows how to defeat them. And as Naruto lands, the Preta Path grabs Naruto and starts siphoning his chakra, but he has Sage mode activated, causing the path to siphon in nature energy, and because it doesn't know how to balance it with its own chakra, the path starts to turn to stone. And then the animal path summoned a massive rhino, and Sasuke, who was holding back for now, he turned into his half Susanoo form and took out his bow and arrow and shot a arrow covered in Amaterasu flames towards the rhino. And when the rhino got shot, it got sent back like a good distance, and then it landed on its side and it started to burn to ash until like nothing was left. And Naruto, he entered his KCM form and threw a kunai into the air, and he then opened his palm towards the enemy, and then the head of Kurama appeared and started to charge a tail beast bomb. But before it shot, Naruto disappeared, and the paths were looking around trying to find where Naruto was, because if it hit them, it would basically mean certain death. So they were looking around but couldn't find it. And then one of them looked up, but by that time, it was really too late. The tail beast bomb smashed into the ground and created a massive explosion. Meanwhile, Sasuke is taking care of the other Akatsuki members, and he simply just roasts them alive with his Amaterasu flames. And in the case of Hidan, I really think that if Sasuke hits him like everywhere on his body, like he doesn't just hit his arm because Hidan could just cut off his arm or something. If he just hits his entire body with the Amaterasu flames, I'm pretty sure Hidan would just burn to ashes because it's not going to be put out, and the flames are, I'm pretty sure they're said to be as hot as the sun. So, I mean, you guys can comment what you think, but I really think that Hidan would die if he got hit by the Amaterasu flames. So we switch perspectives to Nagato, and he slammed his hands down and said, "Damn it, I lost connections with all the paths." And Nagato started coughing up blood, and Konan said, "You've used up most of your chakra, please don't do anything reckless." And Nagato, he snapped back at Konan and said, "You don't get it, Konan. Peace was in the grasp of my hands, but I failed the world." Konan then walked up to Nagato and held his cheek and said, "You did the best you could. We can always make another Akatsuki and try a different approach." And Nagato went silent, and then from the outside of their hidden tree thing, well, the tree's made out of paper, but they hear someone say, "Great fireball jutsu!" And a massive fireball slammed into the side of the paper tree and started burning it, and from the opening, Konan's eyes widened. And this man said, "I see you've used my eyes well, but I'm here to collect what I gave you." And Konan jumped in the way and said, "Get away from him." But this ninja blitzed past Konan and ripped out Nagato's eyes and replaced them with his own and said, "Why must people get in the way of the peaceful world I am trying to build? Well, if my plan doesn't come to fruition, I'll die trying." And with that, he started running back towards the Leaf Village. And now going back with Naruto, he's looking at the battlefield and realized that they're all taken down, and he rips out the chakra rods out of all the paths. And Naruto walked up to Sasuke and they fist bumped, and as some Jonin come out to help carry away the bodies, the ninja from before arrives on scene and is standing a good bit away from Naruto. And Naruto looked to see if it was another Akatsuki members, but when he sees this man, his eyes widen as he realized that that's Madara. And Naruto's mind is racing. Why is everything happening so fast? Madara shouldn't be revived as of yet. Well, because of Naruto even being in this timeline, he is starting to influence the sequence of events. Because Madara, like Naruto said, he shouldn't be revived at this point, but because of some things like Naruto did, it speed up the entire process. Like Naruto defeating Deidara and Sasori, like Pain realized that he needed to take Naruto down, so that pushed the like Pain attacking the village way sooner. So that's the same case with Madara. And Naruto, he immediately went into his KCM form, and Madara said, "If my plan fails, I'm taking this entire village with me. Tengai Shinsei." And Madara put every bit, every ounce of chakra he has into this jutsu, and a meteor 6 times the size as the one that dropped on the Shinobi Alliance was now over the Leaf Village, creating an artificial night because it's blocking the sun. And Naruto looked to Sasuke and said, "I'm gonna need your help for this one." So Sasuke grabbed down to Naruto's shoulder and he brought out one of Minato's kunais, and he said, "I haven't used this one before, but hopefully I'll make my old man proud." And Naruto said, "Flying Thunder God, Guiding Thunder Jutsu." And as the meteor is falling, the surface of it starts burning due to the atmosphere and how fast it's moving. And as it's about to hit the village, it stops and starts being sucked into this massive seal. And Naruto teleports it to the middle of the land of fire where there is 0 inhabitants, just miles and miles of forest. And off in the distance from the Leaf Village, they see this massive explosion. and the ground itself started shaking like a category 8 earthquake. How do you say category or magnitude? I'm pretty sure it's magnitude, yeah. A magnitude 8 earthquake. So some of the buildings in the leaf, just from the tremor of the earth alone, were destroyed, but the entire village itself was still intact. So Naruto, he dropped to his knees and started breathing heavily, and Sasuke crouched down and asked if he was okay, and Naruto said, "Don't worry about me, make sure to capture Madara." And even though Madara is a reanimation, he has unlimited chakra, that meteor was like a trade-off. Take my unlimited chakra for the biggest meteor possible, and that trade-off still resulted in his loss. So with no chakra, literally nothing running through his chakra system, Madara couldn't move at all, so Sasuke made sure he was binded up, and Ibiki took care of him, making sure to seal his eyes and make multiple other seals along his body before they could find a effective way to seal him away. So the villagers stormed over to Naruto and Sasuke and started throwing them into the air, praising them for being the heroes of the village. And Naruto and Sasuke could have never been happier. But the real question is, who's gonna become the next Hokage? So as promised, at the end of the finale, I'd have some bonus scenes. And it's just gonna be a bit of exposition, like 2-3 minutes of what happened after this point. So for the years to follow, Tsunade remained as the Hokage while Naruto and Sasuke had been going around cleaning up the villages within and surrounding the Land of Fire. And unlike canon, there wouldn't be an amazing relationship between the 5 great villages since there was no united army, but with Naruto and Sasuke working together to get rid of all the evils that still persist in these villages, they were really thankful, the great villages were really thankful for their help. Also during this time, they would encounter enemies like Obito and Kabuto, and well, do I have to go on? They get completely wiped off the face of this planet. So after all of this, Naruto and Sasuke, they would return to the village as heroes. And also, don't worry, they took care of Danzo. You think Sasuke would leave him after Itachi told him what he did? No. So it's now 6 years after Sasuke and Naruto had defeated Madara, and the village has advanced a lot technology-wise, and everyone has gone on to marry the same person they did in Boruto, and in the same year, Tsunade would decide to retire, and the council unanimously voted for Naruto to take the role of the Hokage. But there was still a threat Naruto didn't plan for, but with his and Sasuke's newfound strength, they were more than prepared for anything. But that is where I'm going to be leaving this one off. Yes, even in the series finale, you guys are getting hit with a cliffhanger. You can't escape it. Anyways, sorry, I couldn't bring it all the way to the 1 hour mark, but I feel like this is a fitting end to What If Naruto Went Back in Time. And I'll also have some bonus scenes at the end of the movie for when it drops. So, I mean, I won't get into Boruto or anything, but I'll just explain some of the situation that happened after where we are right now. So make sure to check it out when it drops, and remember,
like and subscribe. Or else